Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a topic that, on the surface, seems like maybe the most wholesome corner of the internet.
You'd think so.
We are talking about books. Specifically, we're talking about Book Talk.
And, usually when you think of a community dedicated to reading, you picture cozy rainstorms, oversized sweaters, a cup of tea, maybe some gentle discussions about plot structures or character arcs.
Right. It sounds idyllic.
It does, but the material we're looking at today paints a very, very different picture.
Oh, completely. It's less cozy reading nook and much more, psychological warfare.
That's one way.
The source we're working with today describes Book Talk not as a sanctuary, but, and I'm quoting here, as a dangerous, time-consuming, and confusing battlefield.
It is a strong image, isn't it? It really is. But, when you start to peel back the layers of the algorithm, it starts to make kind of...
Honestly, after going through this stack of research, I think battlefield might be an understatement. Yeah, we are looking at a space where you have indie authors faking their own death just to sell books.
Which is a real thing that happened.
A real thing. And that's happening right next to this hyperconsumption where people are buying literally hundreds of books they never read, all while romanticizing some truly deeply toxic relationship.
It's this bizarre mix of late-stage capitalism and teenage angst, and it's all just amplified by an algorithm that awards the most extreme content.
Exactly.
And the mission for this deep dive is really to look at the dark side of this community. We're not just here to make fun of bad writing.
Although, fair warning, we are definitely going to talk about some truly baffling creatives.
Oh, for sure. But we want to understand how a social media algorithm is fundamentally changing literature.
Right. It's about how that 15-second video form is altering what gets published, how it gets marketed, and, how we actually read, changing the very DNA of storytelling.
Exactly. It's a critique of the whole ecosystem. You have to understand the incentives.
And just to tease what is coming up.
Yeah.
We have got some absolute insanity to cover. I'm talking about romance novels involving sentient Tetris blocks.
That is a real thing. I promise you, we are not making that up.
We have authors who are stalking their own reviewers online, and we have a really deep look at arguably the most popular author on the platform, Colleen Hoover, and why our source thinks her themes are actually quite dangerous for her very young audience.
There is a lot to unpack here.
So let's just dive right in. The first thing we need to wrap our heads around is this concept of imagine.
Right. Imagines.
I've seen this term floating around, but the source breaks it down specifically in the context of Book Talk. So help us out here. What exactly is an imagine in this world? Because to me, it sounds like something from a John Lennon song, but I have a feeling that's not what we're dealing with.
No, far from it. So in the context of Book Talk, an imagine it's essentially a visual storytelling scenario.
Back.
It's a short video. Usually it's a point of view or POV shot. So the camera acts as your eyes. You're looking at a scenario unfolding, and there's text over the clip that presents some kind of fantasy.
So it's a what-if scenario.
Exactly. Originally, these were kind of like shower thoughts or little snippets of fan fiction, just little what-if scenarios that...
Okay, so imagine you meet a cute guy at a coffee shop and he buys you a latte, that sort of thing. Benign stuff.
Theoretically, yes. That's the benign version. But the source points out that on Book Talk, these imagines have morphed into something often quite violent or toxic, yet it's presented as the absolute height of romance.
And we have a specific example here that I have to read this to believe it's real.
Yeah.
The source describes a scenario where the romantic move involves putting shattered glass in someone's shoes.
Yes. The source highlights a video where someone says, I really like this guy. I think I'm going to make a move. And the response in the video is something like, what are you going to do? Put shattered glass in his shoes? Maybe never respect?
And the reaction from the community isn't horror.
No. The reaction is so romantic. That's what people are commenting.
Okay, hold on. I need to push back on this a little.
Yeah.
Is this actually meant to be romantic, or is it just rage bait? Because it sounds like they're just trying to get comments and engagement. Does the source actually believe these creators view this as, as love?
That is the crucial question, isn't it? And the source argues that while, sure, some of it might be performative for views, the underlying sentiment is being normalized. It's this blurring of lines where hostility and abuse are just rebranded as quirky or intense romance. It's the enemies to lovers trope taken to a psychotic extreme.
So it's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly. And it's not just the glass. There was another example the source brought up involving, of all things, baking.
Oh, right. The cookies versus cupcakes thing.
Yeah. The scenario is a woman baking cookies for her husband. And the voice of the husband, it's often an audio clip from a movie voice, says something absolutely vile. Your cookies suck. They taste horrific. You're ass at cooking. You suck.
Charming. Absolutely charming.
And the woman's internal monologue, the text on the screen, it isn't, I should leave this abusive man. It's maybe I should just make cupcakes instead.
And then according to the source, you can hear sounds of physical violence in the background, like things breaking.
You do. You hear thuds and crashes. But the video itself is presented with this aesthetic soft lighting. It's meant to be.
That is deeply, deeply disturbing.
And the source makes a really important point here. It's one thing if this is just a random, edgy TikTok video made by a bored teenager. Fine. But the argument is that these imagines are now being used to market actual books.
So this is the pitch.
This is the pitch. These aren't just 15-cycle skits anymore. They are being turned into 300-page published novels.
So we're seeing a direct pipeline from toxic shower thought to best-selling paperback.
Precisely. And that pipeline rewards the most shocking, the most attention-grabbing. If Shattered Glass and Shoe gets 1 million views, a publisher or an indie author looks at that and goes, okay, write 300 pages of that.
And speaking of attention-grabbing hooks that blur reality, we have to talk about the real-life marketing trend.
This is where it gets a little unnerving for me.
So the source discusses an author who was promoting her new book. And the hook for the book was that it was based on real events where she stalked her college professor.
Right. She was posting these videos implying, oh no, I hate when I publicize things that can be publicly accessed. And she was acting like she was in this real-time panic about her stalker behavior field.
She even made a TikTok of her messaging him.
She did, to make it seem more real.
And the audience, did they, I don't know, call the police, tell her this was a terrible idea?
No, they bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. The comments were just full of people believing this was a real-time drama unfolding. They were invested in the danger of it all.
But it was just marketing.
It was fiction disguised as reality to sell a book about, and you guessed it, an unhealthy obsession. The source points out the real danger. When you have young audiences who normalize stalking behavior because they think it's a cute or dramatic way to start a relationship,
you're setting a very confusing and frankly dangerous standard for what love is supposed to look like.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that other phenomenon the source mentions, this intersection of mask talk, biker talk, and book talk.
Ah, the biker boy phenomenon.
Yes. So let's look at this biker boy phenomenon. The source details a specific viral video involving a Tesla that I think just perfectly illustrates this delusion. Walk me through this skit because it is something else.
It really is. So the video starts with a young woman in a parking lot. She spots a motorcycle, but not just any motorcycle. She spots a guy in a full helmet who also happens to have a Tesla Model S parked nearby.
Okay, so she's identified the target. Financial stability meets the bad boy aesthetic. It's the perfect algorithm bait.
It is the perfect algorithm. And she literally says to the camera, I am going to hunt him down.
Hunt him down.
Not, I hope I run into him, or I'm going to introduce myself. She uses predatory language. She then proceeds to follow him into a Barnes & Noble.
And this is where the UWU concept comes in, right? The source talks.
Right. So UWU is this internet slang. It comes from anime culture originally. And it represents an overly cute, submissive, almost infantile demeanor. It's the face you make when you want to look helpless and adorable.
Got it.
So she goes from predator in the parking lot to stumbling, shy girl in the romance aisle. She films herself accidentally bumping into him.
But it's all staged. It's completely fake.
Completely staged. But the comments section isn't treating it as a skit. They're not saying, haha, good one. They are treating it as a meet cute. They're saying, Ong, I wish this would happen to me.
And that's where the source throws up a massive red flag.
A huge one. Because if you normalize hunting people in parking lots as a romantic gesture, you are actively rewiring your own survival.
Exactly. If I'm in a parking lot and someone is filming themselves hunting me down, I'm not thinking wedding bells. I'm thinking call the police. I'm thinking about my safety.
But on the app, that line is just, it's completely blurred. The stalking is framed as pursuing. The threat is framed as destiny. And that is the core of the critique regarding these imagines. It's not just that they are cheesy, it's that they are conditioning readers, young readers, to view predatory behavior as a prerequisite for romance.
And this brings us to the engine that's driving all of this, the algorithm.
The monetized monster, as the source.
We have touched on this, but let's get into the mechanics of it. The source talks about the 15-second rule. What is that?
The idea is that TikTok is a platform built on incredibly short attention span. Microseconds. You have mere seconds to hook a viewer before they swipe away.
Right.
So the publishing industry is adapting to that constraint. They have.
So instead of a slow burn narrative or complex character development,
you get tropes, you get enemies to lovers, you get mafia romance, you get spice, you get things that can be communicated in a hashtag or a 15-second video clip. The source argues that whatever sells in that 15-second window is what gets published.
So the marketing is dictating the writing, the tail is wagging the dog.
Completely. Authors are writing for the algorithm, they're reverse engineering their plots to fit what's trending, and it's not just existing publishers adapting. The source reveals that ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is actually starting its own publishing house.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. It's called Eighth Note Press.
That's the one. And their strategy is both fascinating and slightly dystopian. They are focusing purely on romance and fantasy.
Why?
Because the data shows that is what performs best algorithmically.
Okay, think about the implications of that for a second. Usually, a publisher bets on a book, and then they market it. ByteDance is flipping the entire model. They own the data on exactly which sentence caused a user to stop scrolling. They know which specific tropes like enemies to lovers or forced proximity keep eyes on the screen for 0.3 seconds longer.
Exactly. They aren't just publishing books. They are reverse engineering literature based on user retention methods. It is the complete industrialization.
The source called this the era of dragon smut.
Dragon smut and formulaic books designed solely for the app. And the fear here, and it's a really valid one, is that this just creates a feedback.
How so?
If the algorithm rewards specific types of sexual content or spice and specific fantasy tropes, then the industry, led by TikTok's own publisher, will produce more and more of it.
And what happens to the organic, original, quieter stories?
They get pushed out. The source worries that original content will perish under the reign of these algorithmically promoted formulaic books. It essentially industrializes the creative process based on engagement metric rather than any sense of literary.
That is really kind of depressing when you lay it out like that. It feels like we're moving toward content paste instead of art.
It's a significant shift in how culture is produced. And when the data dictates the plot becomes predictable. It becomes a product.
Well, if we want to see what this machine produces at the highest level, I think we have to talk about the undisputed queen of BookTok. We have to talk about Colleen Hoover.
The Hooververse, as it's called.
So we've got these fringe TikTok videos promoting toxicity. And that's, it's easy to dismiss that as just internet weirdness. But the source argues this isn't staying on the fringe, right? This specific brand of toxicity has graduated to the #1 spot on the bestseller.
Exactly. And that brings us to the Hoover. The source goes in hard on this. They describe her as just inescapable on the platform. But the critique isn't just that she's popular. What is the fundamental issue the source takes with her work?
The core argument is that she romanticizes, normalizes, and in many cases glorifies abusive and manipulative relationships. And she's doing this for an audience that skews very, very young. We're talking teenage girls, often around 13 years old.
And the deep dive focuses specifically on her book, Ugly Love. Now, I have not read this, but the summary provided by the source, I need you to walk me through this because it sounds like a complete fever dream.
It is certainly a lot to process. So the setup seems pretty standard. The protagonist, a woman named Tate, moves in with her brother, who's a pilot.
Okay.
And there, she meets her brother's friend, Miles, who is passed out drunk in the hallway outside her door.
Classic damsel meets troubled bad boy. Okay, I'm with you so far.
But then we get into Miles's backstory, the whole why is he so broken quest. And this is where the plot goes completely off the rails.
Tell me. I'm ready.
So Miles used to be obsessed with a girl named Rachel.
Okay.
Well, Rachel turns out to be his stepsister.
Oh, okay. Wow. We're going there. Step-sibling romance. Got it.
It gets more complicated. They continue a relationship while living with their parents, who are married to each other.
How does that even work?
I don't know, but they do. And they eventually have a baby.
A baby. While living with their shared parents. How do they hide that?
The book apparently doesn't dwell on the logistics, but yes, a baby. And then, in a tragic turn of events, the baby dies in a car crash.
Oh my God, that took...
And because Miles didn't save the baby from the car in time, Rachel breaks up with him. And that is his trauma. That is the reason he gives for treating the new girl, Tate, so horribly.
So let me get this straight. Because of this unbelievably convoluted stepsister car crash tragedy, his rule for Tate is don't ask about my past, don't expect a future.
Exactly. He sets these rules that essentially strip Tate of any and all emotional need. He uses her for physical intimacy, but the second she asks for anything more, he shuts her down emotionally, sometimes cruelly.
And the source's critique, and this is the crucial part, is that Tate, the female lead, has absolutely no agency.
None. She just takes it.
She tolerates it. She waits around. She hopes he will change. The entire narrative is her just absorbing his trauma and his mood. And the message being sent to young readers is, if you just endure his abuse long, love him hard enough, he will eventually fix it.
And does he? In the book, he does. At the very end, he goes and visits his stepsister Rachel for closure. She conveniently tells him to move on. And instantly, like a snap of the fingers, he becomes the good guy for Tate. His trauma is resolved in one conversation.
So the lesson is, be a doormat, and eventually, if you're lucky, you get the prince.
Precisely. And the source argues this is a terrible, terrible lesson for 13-year-olds.
Yeah.
It creates this fantasy where toxicity is just a hurdle to a happy ending rather than a giant red flag telling you to run away.
It's interesting because the source mentions that Hoover actually tried to release a coloring book based on one of her other novels, one that's about domestic violence.
Oh, yeah. It ends with us. That was a huge controversy. A coloring book for a story about spousal abuse.
A coloring book.
It was eventually pulled after public outcry, but the fact that it was even considered shows how commodified these traumatic themes have become. It's like selling My First Trauma kits.
It creates a kind of cognitive dissonance where abuse just becomes an aesthetic, a brand.
And from the inescapable Hooververse, let's pivot to something. Can we call it lazy?
I think lazy is the exact...
We're talking about the phenomenon of text message poetry, specifically a book called You Left Me on Read.
This is a fascinating artifact of the social media. It's marketed as poetry, but it consists almost entirely of screenshots of iMessages or Instagram.
So it's literally screenshots. Like they just printed out screenshots from a phone and put them in a book.
Screenshots of text bubbles. That's the book. And the content. Well, the source is very, very critical of what it calls the fake depth.
There was one example that stood out to me. I honestly could not believe this was a real published thing. It was a text exchange comparing two tragedies.
Yes. The exchange goes something like, person A texts, "My mom is in the hospital." And person B replies, "You know what would suck more? Your mom being dead like mine."
Wow. That's Suffering Olympics right there.
It gets worse. Person B then follows up with, and I'm quoting exactly here, "And my dog was just ran over."
Wait. They equated their dead mom to a dog being run over in the same breath, as if they're on the same level of tragedy.
They did. And the source just roasts this, describing it as Edgar Allan Poe on Reddit. It's trying so hard to be raw and gritty and deep, but it just comes across as absurd and emotionally hollow.
It's the aesthetic of sadness without any of the substance. It feels like something a middle schooler writes in their journal to seem profound, not something that should be published and sold for $15.
Exactly. It's content designed to be screenshotted and shared by teenagers who want to signal that they are, but there's no actual literary craft involved. It's meme poetry.
Okay, so we've done toxic romance, we have done lazy poetry. Now, I need you to prepare your...
I am braced. I am ready.
We have to talk about the weird side of smut. The source explicitly mentions a genre of books that I truly did not know exist. Let's start with the Tetris novel.
Ah, yes. Taken by the Tetris blocks by an author named Leonard Del...
Please, explain the premise to me like I'm 5. And keep it as PG as you can, but how?
Well, in this particular narrative universe, the Tetris blocks, the L blocks, the squares, the long skinny one, they come down from the heaven. They are sentient beings.
They think. They talk.
Apparently. And not only do they come down from the sky, they integrate into society. They get job.
What job does a Tetris block do? Do they work in construction, urban planning?
That is a great question that the source leaves open to our interpretation. But the core of the plot, if we can call it that, is that the human protagonist has, romantic relation blocks.
In a bathroom, supposedly.
According to the source, yes. It involves a bathroom encounter with multiple blocks at once.
The logistics alone are baffling. Is it geometry? Is it architecture? I have so many questions.
It really speaks to the Rule 34 of the internet. If it exists, there is porn of it. But BookTok has brought this kind of thing into the publishing mainstream in a way that is, it's certainly novel.
And then there's the Boogeyman novel.
Yeah.
Stalked by the Boogeyman.
Oh, this one is even more elaborate and it's absurd. So the Boogeyman but he is under a chastity curse that was placed upon him by his dead ex-wife.
Naturally. Of course, because why not?
And the climax of the book involves him.
No.
He gets very excited to see the protagonist there in her grandmother's garden. And because he has been, let's say, holding it in for a long time due to this curse.
Oh, no. I see exactly where this is going.
He floods the grandmother's garden with, let's call it biological material.
He floods the garden, like with a fire hose.
The source describes it as fertilizer. He floods the surrounding area so severely that they have to trudge through it to get back inside the house.
That is viscerally disgusting.
It is grotesque. But there is one specific detail the source mentions that we absolutely cannot skip, and that is the grandmother character.
Oh, right, the broomstick.
Yes.
Yeah.
The grandmother is depicted as using a magical broomstick for...
Wait, like that kind of personal activity. Pleasure.
Yes. So in one novel, you have a flooding boogeyman and a grandmother with a very functional magical broomstick.
And people are reading this, like seriously reading this and recommending it.
They are. And again, it just highlights what the algorithm pushes. Shock value. It's bizarre premises. It's things that make you stop scrolling and say, wait, what? If you scroll past a book with a nice normal plot, you might just keep scrolling. If you see a video saying this book features a man who floods a garden with his enthusiasm, you stop.
You have to look. It's attention economics applied to literature. It's clickbait in paperback form.
Which leads us perfectly into the next section, because it seems like for a lot of people on BookTok, the books themselves, the stories, whether they're about Tetris blocks or step-siblings, are secondary to the act of owning the books.
Yes. We are now entering the world of hyperconsumption and aesthetics.
The source compares the whole thing to fast fashion.
So this brings us to the physical books themselves. The source makes a comparison to fast fashion. I usually associate that with, cheap t-shirts, not hardcover novels.
But it's the same psychological mechanism. Just like people buy cheap clothes to wear once for an Instagram photo and then throw them away, people are buying books to display them on a shelf for a TikTok video.
And there's this intense pressure to read, or at least to own, these huge amounts of books. The 100 books a month standard.
Right. And because nobody can actually read 100 books a month in any meaningful way, it becomes about collecting. The source discusses the unhaul trend.
The unhaul. That's where YouTubers or TikTokers make these long videos about getting rid of massive piles of books, right?
Yeah, they'll do a book haul video where they show off stacks of books they just bought, they display them on their shelves, and then a few months later, they film themselves getting rid of most of they no longer serve them, or they need...
Wait, so they buy them, don't read them, and then just trash them?
Often, yes. They are treating books as aesthetic objects, as home decor. It's about the color of the spine or how a stack of them looks in the background of a video. The book has lost its value as a vessel for a story and has just become a prop.
There's a delicious irony the source points out here regarding the existence of the library.
Yes. The source is practically screaming at the reader. Do you see this? This is a library card. It's free. You can read all the books you want, and then you give them back when you're done.
But you can't make a library haul video look as permanent or aesthetic as a stack of brand new color-coordinated paperbacks that you own.
Exactly. Libraries don't feed the consumerist engine of the app, owning the object. You can't perform ownership with a library. The unhaul trend proves that BookTok is often less about literacy and more about
And this commodification extends to what people are doing inside the books, too. We have to talk about the annotated book market.
This absolutely blew my mind. People are selling their used, scribbled-in books for more than the cover price.
Double the price sometimes. The example given is a $15 paperback being sold for $35 because it has annotations.
And are these annotations, insightful literary analysis? Are they breaking down themes and modalism?
Hardly. The source mocks this mercilessly. They show an example where someone underlined the phrase, "my lip peeled back" in a snarl.
And why did they underline that? What was the insight?
Just for fun, apparently. Or the source jokes, "I don't have a top lip, so I found this fascinating."
And the other notes are they're just performative reactions, right? Like writing screaming or I audibly gasped in the margins.
Exactly. It's performative reading. It's not about engaging with the text for your own understanding. It's about leaving physical proof that you reacted to the text in the correct way and then selling that reaction as a product.
It's like selling your own emotional labor as a value add to a used paperback. It is deeply weird when you think about it. It's the monetization of the reaction itself.
So we have bad books, we have hyperconsumption. Surely the community itself must be a supportive, lovely place, right?
You would hope so. But unfortunately, that brings us to the part where we have to talk about the war.
The toxicity.
Specifically, the conflict between the classics readers and the romancers.
The snobs versus the stans.
There's a superiority war happening. On one side, you have people reading War and Peace, or Dostoevsky, and acting like they are the guardians of it. On the other side, you have the Colleen Hoover fans who will defend her to the death.
And the source takes a pretty nuanced stance here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just one side is right.
They do. The source argues that elitism is bad reading just to prove you're better or smarter than everyone else is hollow and pointless. But, and it's a very big but, they also argue that we need to be able to make a distinction regarding quality.
Right. Just because we shouldn't be snobs doesn't mean we should just funnel 13-year-olds directly into what the source calls Colleen's dumpster fire.
Exactly. The argument is that new readers are vulnerable. And if the algorithm is pushing them toward toxic romance simply because it's popular, we're doing them a huge disservice. We should be guiding them toward better representations of relationships, not just throwing our hands up and saying, let people read what they want, when what they want is glorified abuse.
And this toxicity isn't just between factions of readers. It's between authors and reviewers, too.
Yeah.
The Goodreads drama.
We have to talk about the fallout that happens when these authors leave the TikTok echo chamber and face actual, honest criticism. Tell me about the Sarah.
This is a masterclass in how not to handle a writing career. So there's an author named Sarah. She writes a book called 3 Rivers. A reviewer on Goodreads gives it 4 stars.
4 stars? Yeah, that's excellent. I really like this rating. That's a good review.
In the real world, yes. But Sarah didn't see it that way. She saw that one missing star as a personal attack. She publicly blasted this reviewer online. She expected her TikTok following to swarm the reviewer and get the review taken down.
But it backfired on her.
Spectacularly. The broader literary community, the book Twitter side of things, saw this bullying, and they called it out. It got so bad that Sarah's publisher actually dropped her because of her behavior.
Wow. And this is where it gets bizarre. She didn't apologize.
No, she pivoted. She claimed the entire thing, the bullying, the public meltdown, was all performance art. She claimed she was a comedian doing a bit.
That's the Schrodinger's douchebag defense. It was a joke only because people got mad about it.
Exactly. But then she took it a step further. She posted a video claiming that because of all this hate, Hollywood producers were now fighting over the movie rights to her book. She claimed she was in meetings with casting directors.
And was there any truth to that at all?
Absolutely none. The source debunked it entirely. It was a complete delusion. But it shows the mindset. Attention is currency, even if it's bad attention. The source calls it a movie deal lie.
So what's the lesson here? Why do these authors behave this way?
The source argues it's a direct result of the TikTok environment. These authors are used to instant, overwhelming gratification. They post a 15-second clip. They get thousands of likes and adoring comments saying, I need this book right now. They live in an echo chamber of praise.
So when they finally go to a platform like Goodreads, which is specifically for honest, critical feedback,
they crumble. They cannot handle valid critique because they haven't built their career on craft or storytelling. They've built it on hype and marketing.
It really paints a picture of a community that is incredibly fragile, commodified, and completely, utterly algorithmic.
So let's unpack this. We've gone through all these insane examples. What does this all mean for the future of...
Well, let's just summarize the landscape we've just described because it's pretty... We have a world where algorithms dictate the structure of stories. We have abuse being romanticized and marketing teenagers. And we have a consumer culture where buying the book is more important than actually...
It sounds really bleak.
It is concerning. But the source does offer a sliver of a silver...
What is it? Is there any good news here?
The numbers. BookTok has boosted reading numbers overall. It has helped some genuinely talented indie authors get discovered. People are buying physical books in an era where everyone predicted that print was dead.
So the bubble syndrome is real people are trapped in this loop of bad recommendation, but at least they are in the library, so to speak.
Or at least in the bookstore. And the hope is that once they are there, maybe they'll drift away from the dragon smut table and find something with a bit more substance. You have to start somewhere.
We can hope.
But it does raise a final provocative thought. If the 15-second hook becomes the standard for all storytelling, what happens to the complex narrative? What happens to the slow burn? What happens to the difficult, nuanced book that doesn't have a neat trope you can summarize in a hashtag?
Are we moving toward a world where books are they're just merch for a personality cult?
That is the danger. When the book is just an accessory to the video, the content of the book itself matters. And that is a very dangerous place for literature.
Well, on that cheerful note, we encourage you, the list, to read broadly. Step outside the algorithm.
And maybe, just maybe, go get a library card. It's free.
And nobody will judge you if you don't put shattered glass in your shoe. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Happy reading.